Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's very generous. Let me just start by telling everybody you should vote for this bill. I had the privilege of obviously being at the full committee markup, and I want to commend both my friends, the chairman and the ranking member, frankly, for the quality of the bill they put in front of us. And I know it's very tough, Mr. Chairman, to live within the Budget Control Act, but you did it, and I think you guys made wise decisions. I join my friend, Mr. Fatah. If we have another larger deal down the road, that'd be fine by me, but we have to live within the laws it is today. In particular, I would, this would be very uncharacteristic probably for a Republican, but I know the tough decisions you had to make, Mr. Chairman, and I think you had to take $75 million out of Legal Services Corporation. And I actually think that that's an agency that performs a very important function. So I hope if that larger deal comes, that that's one of the areas that you look at. But I think you made the right calls given the number you had to work with. So,
thank you. We literally had to prioritize, and Legal Services does extraordinarily important work, and in addition, I certainly will. If extra money's freed up, we get room, absolutely. Do all I can to help them. Chuck and I both work to help them in conference, but I'll also be filing legislation so that attorneys can do a dollar-for-dollar tax deduction for time that they donate to the poor to encourage legal services for the poor through the tax code, in addition to direct appropriations. Hard-earned tax dollars are very precious and scarce. I think we ought to do it through the tax code as well as through the appropriations process. So I'll be looking at them that way as well.
Couldn't agree more. When you draw up that legislation, please let me know, because I'm sure I'd like to co-sponsor it. I think that's actually a very good use of the tax code. But again, I have no questions, Mr. Chairman, because I had the privilege of listening to the full debate. But again, I want to commend both my friends, and I want to commend my committee for moving these bills expeditiously. I think we're at a pretty rapid pace, and for, as is traditional with us, bringing these bills and requesting an open rule so that every member can come down there and have an opportunity to have input into our legislation. We do that, I think, better than any other committee in the Congress, and something that I'm exceptionally proud of. And I know the work will stand the scrutiny of the Congress, and if there happens to be an idea out there that's better, I know the chairman, the ranking member, will work to make that happen. So
thank you.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the legislation. Look forward to supporting it on the floor. Just quickly, because I know we don't have a lot of time, and I want to commend my two friends, the chairman and the ranking member, who I think did an exceptional job working with what we would all acknowledge is a difficult allocation. And they worked together well, and the committee worked together well. We did operate within, as both pointed out, the limits of the law, Budget Control Act. I do want to say something about that. It is important always to note that the president advocated for that act and signed that act. And it has actually lowered the deficit. You know, since we passed it, the deficit's come down every single year since the Budget Control Act was passed. I think it's a pretty blunt instrument, but it's an instrument, frankly, that has been effective, and that, frankly, the Appropriations Committee has worked with and survived through, and will continue to get through it as well. I would also commend the administration, because I was reading their statement very carefully. You know, with all due respect, the president's budget, it wouldn't pass the House or Senate. It just simply won't pass. The tax increases he recommends, and that's how he gets to a higher number, is raising taxes on Americans, will not pass. Now, I would commend to him the model that we saw worked earlier this year in a bipartisan compromise between the Speaker and Minority Leader in this House, and accepted by the Senate. We actually fixed the famous doc fix was finally solved. And what was that? That was an entitlement reform coupled with some real reforms, and that got us out. If the president would go back to some proposals he himself made 2 years ago on things like change CPI, on things like means testing for Medicare, you could find the money to deal with sequester. That's the model to go forward. Putting out something, and perhaps this is just the White House's opening negotiating position, that you know will not pass, is not going to move us very far down the road. So, again, I'd like to get to that higher number myself. We all know some pressing needs. There's a way to get there. We've actually done it ourselves in this body and convinced the Senate to go along. The president supported it. perhaps we can do something like that again. But in the meantime, again, the president's proposal isn't going to pass. So he needs to get real at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. Otherwise, the law is what the law is. And we may end up with an awful continuing resolution, or we may end up with an omnibus, but we will be spending at that level, or he will, effectively veto all the appropriations bill and then a continuing resolution, and then he will have effectively shut down the government, something I don't think he wants to do or would prefer to do or will do in the end. But again, pretty easy to propose things won't pass and then be critical of appropriators who are living within the law that you advocated and you signed. That's what my friend did in this bill. That's what our committee did when it voted out his bill with considerable bipartisan support. And that's what we'll continue to do until we can come to that larger agreement that I know all of us want. That yield back.